My name is Winifred D. Hampton, and I'm 29 years old. I work as a software engineer in downtown Chicago, and 5 years ago, after living with roommates, eating ramen for dinner more nights than I want to admit, and saving every extra dollar like my future depended on it, I finally bought a two-bedroom apartment. It is nothing fancy. It is in a decent building with good security, close to the L, with old brick walls that creak in winter and windows that catch the city lights just right at night. But it is mine. That word still matters to me. Mine. I paid the down payment. I signed the mortgage. I spent 2 more years fixing it up with money from overtime hours and side projects. New appliances, a renovated bathroom, fresh paint, custom shelving for my home office. Every corner of that place has a story, and most of those stories begin with me exhausted at midnight, telling myself it would be worth it someday. My younger sister Emily is 22, and she has always been the golden child. I know how that sounds. Bitter, petty, jealous. Maybe I am all three, but I am also honest. When I worked 2 jobs to pay for community college before transferring to a state school, Emily got a full ride to Northwestern and still somehow needed mom and dad to cover everything else. When I bought my first car at 20, a rusty Honda with 200,000 miles and a passenger door that only opened from the outside, Emily got a brand new Toyota Camry for her sweet 16. When I was living in a moldy basement apartment during my internship, she was decorating a luxury dorm room because the regular dorms weren't good enough for their baby. In our family, I was the responsible older sister, the one who figured things out, the one who did not complain, the one who was expected to be grateful for scraps because at least I was strong. Emily was the princess. She cried and people moved mountains. I cried and people told me I was being dramatic. Last Sunday, my parents, William and Barbara Hampton, invited me over for dinner. I should have known something was wrong when Mom made pot roast. She only made pot roast when she wanted something and needed the house to smell like guilt first. The whole dinner felt staged. Emily was there in a soft blue dress, hair curled, makeup perfect, like we were attending some private ceremony I had not been told about. Dad wore his good watch. Mom used the serving dishes she usually saved for holidays. They asked about my work, the weather, Emily's upcoming graduation. Nobody mentioned my apartment, but somehow I felt it in the room like a shadow. Then dessert came. Apple pie, cut into perfect squares because Mom did everything with that strange little precision when she was nervous. Dad cleared his throat. Winifred, we need to discuss Emily's graduation present. I relaxed for half a second. I thought they wanted money. Last year, I had contributed $500 toward Emily's spring break trip to Cabo because family helps family. I was already calculating what I could spare without wrecking my budget. Mom smiled gently. Too gently. We've been thinking. Emily is starting her adult life, and housing is so expensive these days. Tell me about it, I said, thinking about my mortgage payment. That's why, Dad continued, folding his hands on the table. We've decided the best graduation gift would be for you to transfer ownership of your apartment to Emily. I choked on my pie. Not a delicate cough. A full, humiliating, eyes-watering, can't-breathe kind of choke. Emily just watched me like my reaction was inconvenient. When I finally caught my breath, I stared at them. I'm sorry. What? Mom reached for my hand, but I pulled it back. Your apartment, sweetheart. You'll sign it over to Emily. She needs a good start in life. You're established in your career now. You can easily get another place. I looked around the table, waiting for someone to laugh, waiting for Dad to say it was a terrible joke, waiting for Emily to look embarrassed. But they all stared at me with calm expectation, like they had asked me to pass the salt. You want me to give Emily my apartment, I said slowly. The apartment I bought. The apartment I'm still paying a mortgage on. That apartment. Don't be dramatic, Dad said. It's not like you're using all of it. You live alone in a 2-bedroom. That's wasteful in this economy. Wasteful The word hit me so hard I almost laughed. I use the second bedroom as my office. I work from home 3 days a week. Emily finally spoke, examining her nails. You can work from a coffee shop. Lots of people do that now. It's trendy. Something hot and sharp moved through my chest. Are you all insane? Mom's face immediately shifted into disappointment mode. Winifred. Family helps family. You comp-signed a car loan when I was 20, I snapped. A loan I paid every cent of, and you held it over my head for 3 years. That was different, Dad said. We were teaching you responsibility. So Emily gets rewarded with my home? Emily's mouth tightened. I have student loans. You had a full ride. I still had living expenses. In the trendiest neighborhoods in Chicago. Mom started crying then, softly at first, dabbing her eyes like she had rehearsed it. Dad accused me of being selfish, materialistic, obsessed with things. Emily said I was ruining her graduation joy. Then Mom pulled out her phone and showed me listings for studio apartments. See, she said, there are places you could move. I looked at the screen. These are in Cicero. They're rentals. They're an hour from my office. A little commute builds character, Dad said. That was when I stood up. I grabbed my coat while they kept talking, kept pleading, kept accusing. By the time I reached the door, Mom was crying louder, Dad was calling me ungrateful, and Emily was saying I had always resented her happiness. I walked out anyway. My phone started buzzing before I reached my car. Text from Mom, voicemails from Dad, a message from Emily that said I was destroying the best moment of her life. But all I could think about was how prepared they had been. The listings, the speeches, Emily's calm little nods. They had planned the whole ambush and expected me to fold because I always had before. Only this time, they were not asking for help. They were asking for the roof over my head. For 2 days after that dinner, I kept replaying it in my head. The way Dad had said transfer ownership, like he was talking about changing a phone plan. The way Mom had called me sweetheart while asking me to give up the only stable thing I had ever built for myself. The way Emily had already imagined my office becoming her closet before I had even said yes. So I did what everyone online told me to do, and what my own shaking hands needed me to do. I sent one clear group text. My apartment is not and will never be Emily's graduation gift. I will not discuss this again. I am willing to contribute to a reasonable gift, such as first month's rent, furniture, or something else within normal limits. The subject is closed. The response came immediately. Mom called me crying so hard I could barely understand her. You are crushing your sister's dreams. Dad sent a long email about how he and Mom had sacrificed everything for their children, and how I was spitting in their faces. Emily posted Instagram stories about fake family, people forgetting where they came from, and blessings that were meant to be shared. She did not name me, but she posted a photo of a downtown skyline with a broken heart emoji, so subtlety was clearly not her goal. I ignored all of it, or at least I tried to. I muted the group chat, turned off Instagram, and buried myself in work. Then Thursday happened. I was working from home, sitting in the second bedroom that Emily thought would make such a great closet, when I heard familiar voices in the hallway. At first I thought stress was making me imagine things. Then I heard Mom's laugh, that bright, fake laugh she used with strangers. I looked through the peephole. My parents were standing outside the vacant apartment 3 doors down, with Emily and Margaret, my building manager. Margaret was unlocking the unit. My blood went cold. I opened my door just as Margaret pushed the vacant unit open. She smiled at me. Oh, Winifred, perfect timing. Your family mentioned they were apartment hunting. I'm showing them 4B, same layout as yours, just renovated. Mom turned to me with the warmest smile in the world. The kind of smile that made other people believe she was harmless. Hi, sweetheart. We thought we'd look at different floor plans to understand what features work best for Emily's needs. Emily lifted her phone and started recording the hallway, like she was touring a place she already expected to move into. I stood there, frozen, while they walked through 4B. Dad asked about square footage. Mom checked the kitchen cabinets. Emily took pictures of the windows, the bathroom, the closets. They acted like normal people considering a rental, but I knew exactly what they were doing. They were comparing it to mine, measuring mine through another door. After Margaret left, they came straight to my apartment. They did not ask to come in. Dad stepped past me first, then Mom, then Emily, like my doorway was already theirs. For 1 second I was so shocked I could not move. Mom looked around my living room and sighed. See, the updated kitchen in 4B is nice, but I still prefer your backsplash. Emily, wouldn't you love waking up to this view? Emily walked right into my office. My office. The room where I had worked late nights, taken interviews, built side projects, and cried quietly after bad performance reviews because I was too proud to call anyone. I'd put my desk here, she said, standing by the window. And this could be a walk-in closet. I work in here, I said. She looked at me like I had missed something obvious. Well, not after July. That was the moment something in me snapped clean in half. Get out. Dad turned sharply. Do not speak to us that way. Get out of my apartment. We are trying to have a civilized discussion about transitions. There is no transition, I said. My voice shook, but I did not lower it. This is my home, mine. I pay for it. I live here. I am not giving it away. Mom's face hardened. The sweetness disappeared so fast it almost frightened me. You would rather keep empty space than help your sister succeed. I walked to the door and held it open. Out! They left, but not before Mom called me ungrateful. Dad said I was no daughter of his, and Emily took one last picture of my hallway, whispering that she wanted to remember the layout for later. The next morning, Margaret called me. Her voice was careful, too careful. Winifred, I do not want to pry, but is everything okay with your family? I sat down slowly. Why? She told me they'd asked questions. Not normal apartment hunting questions. Questions about transferring ownership between family members. Whether the HOA had restrictions on gifting units, whether they could get the building bylaws, what happened if HOA payments were late, and whether they could schedule an inspection for a future owner. A future owner. My hands went numb around the phone. Margaret said she had already noted in my file that nobody but me had authority over my unit or account. She told the front desk not to release information to anyone claiming to be family. She sounded horrified, and somehow that made it worse, because for years I had been trained to believe my family was only difficult, not dangerous. But the campaign was just beginning. Within 24 hours, relatives I had not spoken to in years started contacting me. Aunt Patricia said family wealth should be shared. Cousin Jennifer texted that I was teaching her children a terrible lesson about generosity. Grandma called confused because Mom had told her I owned multiple properties and refused to share even one with Emily. The only sane call came from Uncle Richard, Dad's brother. Your parents are out of their minds, he said. Stand firm. Then he told me this was not the first time. They had tried to guilt Cousin Michael into giving Dad his boat because Dad had always dreamed of owning one. They had pressured Aunt Susan to let them use her vacation cabin indefinitely. They had a pattern. I was not special. I was just next. That night, I changed my locks even though they did not have a key. I installed a doorbell camera. I documented every text, email, voicemail, and social media post. I spoke to a lawyer friend who told me they could not force me to transfer anything, but I needed to keep records in case they escalated. And they did. Emily posted photos of my building with captions like, "So close yet so far." Mom suddenly had stress migraines and heart palpitations from the family Discord. Dad sent me an article claiming adult children who refused to support family lived shorter lives. Then Emily texted me that she had already told her boyfriend's family she was getting an amazing downtown apartment for graduation, and now I was making her look like a liar. I stared at that message for a long time. She had lied. And somehow, in my family, I was still the problem. Emily's graduation was 2 weeks after the apartment tour disaster. I thought about going. I really did. There was still a part of me, the old trained part, that whispered I should show up, smile for pictures, clap when her name was called, and pretend we were a normal family. But I could not sit there beside people who were actively plotting to take my home. So I sent a graduation card with a $500 check. That had been my original gift before all of this insanity started. Emily cashed it within 24 hours. No thank you. No text. No acknowledgement. Just the money leaving my account like everything else I had ever given her. The explosion came immediately. Mom left a voicemail saying, "How dare you miss your only sister's graduation?" Dad texted that I was tearing the family apart. Aunt Patricia wrote, "Your absence was noticed and spoke volumes about your character." I almost replied, "And what does trying to steal my apartment say about yours?" But I did not. Silence was cheaper than giving them another weapon. The real circus began the following Saturday. It was 8 in the morning. I was drinking coffee in my apartment, barefoot, hair still damp from the shower, trying to enjoy one quiet weekend. Then the doorbell rang. On my security camera, I saw my parents, Emily, and a stranger in a suit. Every instinct in my body screamed not to open the door. But curiosity is dangerous when you have spent your whole life trying to understand people who hurt you. I opened it, but kept one hand on the door. "Can I help you?" Dad stepped forward like he was making a public announcement. "Winifred, this is Mr. Peterson, our attorney. We need to discuss the apartment transfer." I blinked. "The what?" Mr. Peterson looked uncomfortable already. He extended his hand. "Miss Hampton, I'm here to help facilitate the property transfer your parents have arranged." I did not shake his hand. "What property transfer?" Mom gave me that patient smile, the one that made me feel like a difficult child, even at 29. "Don't be difficult, Winifred. We've had all the paperwork drawn up. All you need to do is sign, and this unpleasantness can be behind us." Mr. Peterson cleared his throat. "May I come in?" This would be better discussed sitting down. Against every sensible thought in my head, I let them in. Not because I was considering anything, because I needed to see exactly how far they were willing to go. They sat on my couch, the couch I had saved 3 months to buy, and Mr. Peterson opened a folder. Inside were official-looking documents with my name and Emily's name printed neatly across the pages. "The transfer is straightforward," he said, reading from his notes. "You would be signing over full ownership to Emily Hampton, effective July 1st, giving you time to make arrangements." I looked at the documents, then at him, then at my family. "What makes you think I would sign these?" Mr. Peterson frowned. "I was told this was a family agreement that only needed formalizing." I laughed once. It came out cold and ugly. "Did they mention I have refused multiple times? Did they mention I explicitly said I would never give Emily my apartment?" His face changed slowly. Professional calm gave way to realization. He turned to my parents. "You told me Miss Hampton had agreed." "She will," Dad said. "She just needs to stop being stubborn and remember her family obligations." Emily folded her arms. "I already told my roommates I'd have a place by July. My boyfriend's family knows too. I can't go back and tell everyone it fell through. Do you want me to look like a liar?" "You made yourself look like a liar," I said. Her eyes filled with tears, but they did not move me the way they used to. "This is so typical of you. You always make things difficult." Mr. Peterson began putting the papers away. "I think there has been a significant misunderstanding. Property transfers require willing participation. Without Miss Hampton's consent, these documents are meaningless." Mom started crying. Dad stood and moved toward me, his face dark with anger. "Family helps family," he said. "If you cannot understand that, maybe you are not part of this family anymore." The room went quiet. Something inside me hurt. Not because he said it, but because I realized he had probably believed it for years. "Then maybe I'm not," I said. Mom stopped crying. Emily's mouth fell open. Dad looked like I had slapped him. I stood and opened the door. "Get out, all of you." They left loudly. Mom wailed that I was breaking her heart. Dad called me ungrateful. Emily said I was dead to her. Mr. Peterson paused at the door, handed me his card, and quietly said, "You may want your own legal representation if this continues." it continued. By Monday morning, my parents appeared at my workplace. Security stopped them in the lobby, but they caused enough of a scene that my boss asked if everything was okay. That afternoon, I contacted a lawyer. By Wednesday, a cease and desist letter went out. That night, alone in my apartment, I opened a bottle of wine and sat on the floor among printed screenshots, voicemails, legal notes, and camera footage. I had thought I was protecting my home. Now, I understood I was protecting my life. For a while after Mr. Peterson left my apartment, I kept expecting another knock, another ambush, another relative suddenly remembering my number because Mom had fed them a story about my cruelty. Instead, everything went strangely quiet. No texts, no voicemails, no Instagram stories from Emily, no emails from Dad written like legal threats by someone who had watched too many courtroom dramas. The silence should have felt peaceful. It did not. It felt like the pause in a horror movie when the house goes still and you know something is standing just outside the frame. 2 weeks passed that way. I kept going to work, kept checking my cameras, kept saving every message. Therapy helped, but only enough to make me understand how badly this had warped me. My therapist asked me what I would do if they never stopped. I did not have an answer. Then Emily called. Not texted, not posted, not sent Mom as an emotional messenger. She called me directly. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something about seeing her name made my stomach twist. I answered. Winifred, she said, and her voice cracked immediately. Please do not hang up. I said nothing. I need to talk to you. It's urgent. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Every rational part of me knew this could be another trap. My lawyer had told me not to meet anyone without documentation. My therapist had told me guilt was my family's favorite door. But Emily sounded different. Not sad, because she had not gotten her way. Scared. I agreed to meet her at a small cafe near my office, in public, in daylight, with my location shared to a friend. Emily looked terrible when she walked in. No curled hair, no perfect makeup, no expensive little outfit chosen to make her look harmless. She wore sweatpants and an oversized hoodie, her eyes swollen, her face pale. She sat down across from me and broke. I'm sorry, she whispered. You were right about everything. I folded my hands around my coffee. What happened? Mom and Dad are in trouble, she said. Bad trouble. They're going to lose the house. For 1 second I thought. There it is. The new angle. The next way to make me responsible. But then Emily unlocked her phone and pushed it toward me. Bank notices, foreclosure warnings, screenshots of emails, past due amounts that made my throat close. They took out a second mortgage almost a year ago, she said. Uncle Dennis got them into some cryptocurrency thing. They thought they were going to double the money. They lost almost everything, close to $200,000. I stared at the screen. You're serious. She nodded, crying again. That's why they wanted your apartment. They told me last week. At first, they said it was for me, that you had more than enough, that you'd eventually come around. But it wasn't just for me. They thought if you signed it over, they could either move in with me, or convince me to sell it, or use it somehow to fix what they did. I felt cold all over. The apartment had never been a graduation gift. It had been an escape plan. And you went along with it, I said. Emily flinched. I know. You walked through my home like it was already yours. I know. You told your boyfriend's family you were getting it. I know, Winifred. She covered her face. I know I was horrible. I have always gotten whatever I wanted from them. When they said you would give it to me, I believed them. I expected it. I'm 22 years old, and I expected my sister to hand me her home because Mommy and Daddy said so. Neither of us spoke for a moment. Then she said, There's more. Of course there was. They're planning an intervention. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. For what? Not signing over real estate? Emily shook her head. Next week. They're bringing family members to your apartment. A lot of them. Aunt Patricia, Uncle Dennis, some cousins. Uncle Dennis has a lawyer friend. who supposedly knows how to expedite family transfers. They think if enough people show up, you'll cave. I sat back slowly. My own parents were organizing a mob to take my home. Emily reached toward my hand, then stopped herself. I know I don't deserve anything from you. Not forgiveness, not trust. But you're my sister, and this is wrong. I wanted to warn you. 2 days later, they showed up at my workplace again. This time they did not come alone. My father, my mother, Uncle Dennis, Aunt Patricia, and 3 cousins filled the lobby like a protest. They told security it was a family emergency. When security refused to let them upstairs, Dad started shouting that I was letting my parents become homeless while I lived in luxury. Mom clutched her chest and claimed she was having pains. Aunt Patricia yelled about family values loud enough for people from accounting to stop and stare. Police came. I had to leave a client meeting to stand in the lobby while officers separated my family from my workplace. My boss was kind, but HR still called me in afterward and made it clear this could not happen again. That night, I called Uncle Richard and asked for his lawyer's contact. The next morning, I filed for a restraining order. I included everything: the messages, the cameras, the workplace incidents, the fake transfer papers, Mr. Peterson's card, Margaret's notes, Emily's warning. For the first time, I was not asking my family to understand. I was asking the court to make them stop. The hearing was a week later. I arrived with my lawyer, a folder full of evidence, and the kind of calm that only comes after months of being pushed too far. My parents came with Uncle Dennis's lawyer. Mom wore black, like she was attending a funeral. Dad would not look at me. Their argument was exactly what I expected. I was an ungrateful daughter. I had abandoned family. I was letting my parents suffer while I lived comfortably. They tried to make it sound like a private family disagreement that had gotten emotional. Then my lawyer showed the judge everything: the fake transfer documents, the messages, the security footage, the workplace incident, Margaret's written statement, Mr. Peterson's note confirming he had been misled, Emily's warning about the planned intervention. The judge's face changed when he saw the paperwork they had brought to my apartment. He granted the restraining order. My parents could not come within 500 feet of me, my apartment, or my workplace. Mom screamed that I was killing her. Dad shouted that I was no daughter of his. They had to be escorted out. I thought I would feel victorious. Mostly, I felt empty. Afterward, the family split in half. Some relatives said I went too far. Others quietly admitted they had been lied to. Grandma called me herself and said she never believed I owned multiple buildings. Uncle Richard exposed years of borrowing, sob stories, and manipulation. The truth finally had witnesses. Emily changed too. Not overnight, not magically. But she started therapy, got 2 jobs, and sent me a long letter apologizing for everything. She did not ask for money. She did not ask for forgiveness. She only said she wanted to become someone who earned her own life. I referred her to a friend looking for an entry-level marketing assistant. She got the job herself. We are not close. Maybe we never will be. But for the first time, I saw her trying. My parents lost the house last month. They moved in with Uncle Dennis, and from what I hear, he is already regretting every choice that led him there. As for me, I still have my apartment. My apartment. I repainted the office, moved the desk, bought new curtains, little things, but they helped me reclaim the space. Therapy is ongoing. I am learning that love should not feel like a debt collector knocking at your door. The restraining order stands for 2 years. I have not spoken to my parents since the hearing. For the first time in my life, silence feels safe. I kept my home. I kept my boundaries. And finally, I kept my peace.